Hello and welcome to episode 88 of the Dash News podcast. I'm Mark Mason and I'm joined by my two fellow hosts, Joel Valenzuela. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Crazy 88 already, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, and this week we're welcoming back Mastermind, aka Brian. How's it going?
Excellent, excellent.
Good to have you back. And this week's special guest is Edward. You may know him from Dash.Red. He's big in the community. Welcome to the podcast, Edward.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, this isn't actually technically your first time on the podcast because we did record something in Porkfest, but unfortunately it never actually made it onto the channel because of the poor audio and stuff. But I mean,
tequila and stuff like that.
And tequila, but Porkfest was a great time because that was the first time I actually got to meet you in person, Edward. And I thought we hit it off like big time. We had a massive chat about masternodes, voting. So I know this podcast is going to be super, super lively. So the idea of this podcast this week is more just to reflect on Dash. A lot of stuff has been happening in Dash recently. We've just had the 5th anniversary of Dash. We've just had the major milestone of version 0.13. So we're going to kind of talk about, as Edward is publicly out as a masternode owner, we're going to talk about the voting process, Dash Central, how we think things are right now, how they were, last year, and then we can probably get in some Dash.Red juicy gossip and find out what's going on there. So, Edward, out the gate, how do you feel about the current state of Dash Central? Because there's a lot of comments and feedback right now where some people are saying because of the price downturn, there's a lot of negative comments. Some people are saying they're brigading like up voting, down voting. There's a lot of voting manipulation going on in the comment section. Have you taken any notice of this?
Well, let's talk a moment about the voting manipulation. Okay, so voting manipulation, most people would wonder what that is. And we need to be clear because it has nothing to do with a masternode having the ability to vote for a proposal, and there's some kind of manipulation on the actual votes that proposals receive. The voting manipulation is in the comments section.
Yep.
And so people can vote a comment up or vote a comment down. And so people have noticed that certain comments are either voted way up according to an opinion that's favored by someone, or voted way down. And yeah, I mean, that's an interesting problem that we face. But it's really minor because most of the masternode owners who are going to go in and vote on a proposal, they're going to read through the comments because they want to understand, how the community feels about a given proposal. But they're, including when things are voted down, they read all of things. This was voted down. And so everybody is really understanding of what's happening there. It's just an interesting side effect. I don't think it necessarily makes a huge difference on the outcome of the voting in the end.
But it hasn't always been this way, though. Do you think the downturn in prices do that? Or do you think now there's more competition because there's more proposals? Or do you think there's lots of variables in there?
No, it has nothing to do with the downturn in price, in my opinion. We had problems with the comments section before. I'm sure you guys remember when people would go in and they would ask their friends to sign up on the website. This was when it was open to anybody, and anybody could go in and act like a masternode, and they weren't, and make comments and ask supposedly important questions. I'm just asking the tough questions, and yet you're somebody who doesn't know anything or care anything about a given proposal. That went on before, and it was much worse.
That drove me nuts, especially because a lot of people, a lot of random commenters, because not everyone self-identified as a masternode on Dash Central register their votes. I know plenty of people like to vote in the wallet, for example. But then some people would just say, absolute garbage piece of proposal, voting no. So you can't vote. You're not a voter. But it just makes it like, oh, someone's voting no. My peers are against this. I better look like such nonsense.
Right. Yeah, right. I think that most masternode owners know very well that when someone just makes a ridiculous claim that this is a garbage proposal with no facts to back it up, that it's just it's worthless comment.
Yeah, Rango locked it down whenever it got too crazy, but I know that for a fact that there's still people in there who have multiple accounts, 3, 4, maybe even 5 accounts. Some proposal owners I know that have had various proposals and they have various usernames on the Discords. And then we also see, I think, a lot of masternode owner sock puppet accounts if they have multiple masternodes. So we see a lot of new people that come in and seem to have a vast knowledge of the history and everything, and it's like, come on, you're a sock puppet for some masternode. Yeah,
we're just some like random MNO confirmed person called Trolero or something. It's like, that's clearly a little weird.
Now the interesting thing is seeing how Dash Nexus will, because at the moment they're still in a transitional phase where they're importing proposals over. So it's gonna be interesting to see if that carries on or not, and also as well from the pre-proposal perspective as well, because one of the big pain points that we had for a long time was masternodes would say like, why did you do a pre-proposal first? And then some people would say we did in the Dash forums, but no one looked at it. So with this new concept area, it's going to be interesting to see how much notice and how active that gets, because a lot of the conversation might actually come off Discord and Reddit and actually onto Dash Nexus. But I think it's still a bit too early. People are still, going between the two. And I think until, there's a real bulk of people going in over to Dash Nexus, we're not going to see if that carries on, because they've still got their comment section is a bit like Reddit with the whole upvoting, but there's no downvote, right? So that's my understanding anyway. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, because let's be honest, this is a really important thing because the governance in Dash is the beating heart of Dash for our DAO, right? The funding, decentralized governance, it's absolutely everything. And I think from voting for me, I had a nice conversation with Edward last night, and I was just saying, like, I used to feel, that I could gauge how the network would vote on certain things, but these last few months, I just don't know anymore. It's just, I can't, there's just no telling. And I don't think that's a disconnect. It's just, there's so many proposals, and maybe it's a bit of voting fatigue as well. I don't know what's going on, but like, does anyone else feel this, or can relate?
I don't agree. I think that it's the same as it's always been, at least from my perspective. I just don't see it as being either negative or particularly positive. Of course, the price has had an effect on people's ability to spend Dash, because people need to request more in order to do the same job as they did previously. So
yeah,
I think there's been more negativity in the comment section, which some of that's a good thing. Some of these proposals that get rubber stamped, they're not getting rubber stamped as easily anymore. And I don't know, there's a core proposal that's not looking, I haven't checked it in a minute, but it wasn't looking very well. And usually cores get fairly rubber stamped. So maybe conversations.
Yes. Yes, the core PR proposal is, the last I looked, it was still not in the green.
Yeah, so as someone who's been watching the stuff since like mid-late 2016, which is not as long as many of you have, I have noticed, like, I've seen like the waves come and go. Definitely there's just one thing I've noticed is it's like a waste. It's a little bit of a barren wasteland as far as like interest. And there's plenty of interest in some cases, but for example, a lot of proposals have had issues with low participation. Even like I've noticed it's like 3 or 4 days before deadline, and then core proposals not being funded with like 7 no votes, like just almost no votes. But it's still funded because people just aren't showing up to vote. Some of it has to do with, holy crikey, is there like a lot to go over? Because before you just, I trust you, I'll give you money. Now there's so many scammers, and then you have to, or there were so many attempted scammers, and then you have groups like Dash Watch, which is doing, really hard work trying to, even everything out. Then you have to go through their reports and look at that kind of stuff. And some people are just like, wow, this is a daunting task, especially when energy's low with the, the whole price being down there and stuff. And then just, I also think that there is definitely a little bit of burnout from fights. And I there haven't always been a lot of fights, but there, like over the last 6 or so months, especially, there's just been during certain proposal cycles, just constant Thunderdome, just like you know, 5 proposals enter, no proposal leave, just like everything getting, and it's been hard to there's only so much emotional energy you can have. And at some point, when you just give it all to care and think about all this, just like I just don't want to check. I just don't want to check next month. I'd rather not vote. Someone else will vote. It'll be fine.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to address real quick is that there was some sentiment about if you have a proposal, it's bad etiquette to comment on other proposals. No, I think that's bullshit. I think the thing is, just don't be an asshole about it. There's certain people that have been assholes who have proposals to other proposal owners, and that's not cool. But I think if you conduct yourself responsibly, it's fine. I mean, if not, I wouldn't have been able to comment on any proposal for the last years.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I mean, you got to, that's the thing, you got to flip your hats out. Like, for example, I have all of us here are part of Dash Force, except for Edward. Sorry, Edward. But we, I take charge of the news website. Myself and Justin do the writing, and we have to make sure we objectively, fairly report the facts of what happens. And there's a lot of opinions I have as a personal human being that are very different, or that paint a very different picture from just the facts approach we take on the site. So we have to make the hats. You got to switch your hat. This is professional hat, personal hat, and it's as a human being, you can have personal opinions. A proposal owner masternode operator has 3 hats. They have your own opinions, you're doing your job as your proposal, and you have your hat of I'm an investor in this network trying to make the very best decisions for that. And as long as you can keep those hats sequestered, and the problem is we have some bleed overs where you have people name calling, again, personal dislike, other proposal owners or other proposal people, rather than just comment as a national owner, I find this to be, I don't think it's a good ROI. Instead of that stuff, they're just name calling, or people taking their proposal hat and being like, I want my proposal to be funded. This one's a competition, and then just jumping on them instead. And it's very important. TLDR, respect the hats.
Yeah, I want to say something about that too. It's interesting from the perspective of a proposal owner who is also a masternode. It's very easy to vote. I mean, you vote yes, you vote no, and you go on with your life like you don't care. But from the perspective of a proposal owner, that could be the very thing that you put all of your eggs into that basket. This is my life. This is my job. And my family depends on what I do. And so if the proposal doesn't pass, it's kind of like a kick in the gut because, yeah, I mean, this is what people have decided to do with themselves to make a living. As a matter of fact, I have a special guest here who is part of the Dash.Red proposal.
Hola.
I don't know if you can see her. There you go. Paola's here. She just wanted to stop in and say hello. So,
hello.
Hola, ¿cómo están?
There you go. So I mean, it's just something that I would love for the masternode owners to remember that they need to be respectful of the people who are bringing services to the network.
What do you want to see in a proposal, Edward? How do you evaluate proposals? Because this will be interesting for people not just in the community, but potential people that are considering submitting a proposal.
Right.
How do you evaluate? Do you just go with your gut? Do you talk to people in the community? Or do you rely on Dash.Watch reports? How do you come to your conclusion?
Yeah, that is the best question, because that from a masternode owner, I hope that all of the masternodes are taking into consideration the things that they should. So the first thing that I think is really, really important is the reputation of the person who's presenting the proposal. And that's really a hard thing to get when you're a brand new proposal owner. Of course, we have Dash Boost now, which is fantastic because you can put up a small proposal that's easier to win. You can do some work for the Dash network. And then with that experience, you can put in a larger proposal in the future. So a person's reputation is critical. And I think the second most important thing is that the price that they're asking for is reasonable for what they're planning to do with the money. I think some of the proposals are overpriced sometimes, and I certainly understand when the price of Dash is crashing, it's very hard to know what to ask for. So, you know, from the masternode's owner perspective, you want to see a proposal that requests a sufficient amount to do the job and do it well, but not to be gouging and requesting more funds than are needed.
Yeah, the price swings are crazy, and I would posit that Dash Force does a better job than most in terms of remaining relatively unaffected by it, in terms of budgeting for it, in terms of watching out for it, making cuts where necessary, kind of keeping the whole thing together, because we've all been in this like crazy crypto world since day one. But I really feel sorry for the people that have more structure and less pivot ability, to where they just like, okay, well, I have this much in USD salaries and expenses, and I requested just enough for it. The price crashes, and then I can't do it. Or then there's been some people who I remember last during the big old run up, it's just been a lot of people have been like, yeah, I'll request this. And they just keep on requesting the same funding using a calculation from like 5 weeks ago, or like using like a special algorithm. Well, if you carry the 2, you'll see that I'm actually being paid 1/10 of what you'll end up giving me. And just like, there's just a lot of like, you know, robbery type stuff. I'm not very, a lot of shenanigans.
Fuckery.
And yeah, definitely a lot of that kind of stuff going on. And I think that, I mean, not speaking for myself on behalf of myself, but speaking generally, I think that the network needs to have a certain degree, a buffer of understanding with all the risk people are taking on in these kinds of situations, including like, so like I had a couple event proposals last year, and because of the budget, I said, I'm going to budget a 20% buffer in case of the price fell. And in some cases, by the time it paid out, the price crashed like 27% or something. And I'm just like, all right, well, I guess I'm doing the Dash giveaway out of my own pocket rather than the proposal funds this time. And like that happened many times. And it can be a little bit rough.
It happened.
Yeah. You were there for that one, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, and this is actually to Edward and Brian, but as Edward's the guest, we'll go to him first. But I think Brian's going to have a lot to say about this as well. Let's talk about things that you don't like in proposals, because criticism's okay as long as it's constructive. So what do you hate seeing in proposals? Like, how can it be better? But what really grinds your gears? Like, so people watching this, like, how can they make their proposals good? Like, what defines what's the definition of you as a really bad proposal?
Wow.
You must have seen some over your time. You must, because everyone has their own template, their own standard.
Is there any way? Obviously, not everyone likes to call out names. Is there any way you can just describe it in general terms without being like, oh yeah, that guy whose first name starts with a like, without that, just saying like, oh, there's one proposal that was in the it was about marketing and it kind of failed in these kind of ways. I don't know. See if you can figure out.
We've actually seen some proposals that were just total frauds. They would do a certain amount of the work or a certain amount of the promotion that was requested of them to do, but just enough to make it seem like they were something positive. I mean, I think it's perfectly acceptable to remember getfreedash.com. At first, he requested 150 Dash a month, which was a lot. It was more than he really needed to request, in my opinion. And I just based that on my own experience with Dash.Red. And when he came in, just right immediately after winning that much, he came in immediately after and asked for 500 Dash a month. And I just said, this is ridiculous. This is just completely.
So that was the alarm bell. So for you, really, it's the ask. It's not really like how they write their proposal.
How they write their proposal is true. For example, I think that we've seen many proposals that are just based on the fact that websites exist and can draw a certain amount of traffic and a certain amount of interest. But websites aren't what they used to be. I mean, this isn't 1999 when websites were, wow! This is just, you know, another website on the internet. I mean, out of millions of them.
You hear that, Mark? He's talking smack about dashnews.org.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
No, I think it makes a valid point. I totally agree, because we, as Joel said earlier, we see many things come and go. So some of us that have been more seasoned have seen some of these proposals come. And sometimes I feel bad because you get someone new that comes along and they'll submit a proposal. And of course, they don't know the history of things that have come before. But some of us that have seen similar sounding things go like, oh, here we go again. Like, are they going to stick around? Are they really in it for the duration? Or is this just like a here today, gone tomorrow job?
Yeah, one thing to avoid is like the 6 to 12 month, you know, proposal. I mean, that's just, I mean, maybe there's circumstances where, I mean, but it's very, very rare. Another big thing is going out of the scope of your proposal. Just because you got a lot of extra funds, well, hey, I'll try this crazy thing, or we'll fly everybody here. No, that's not in this. That's, you know, that's not what people voted for.
Now, if you have surplus funds, that's fine, but you better have the surplus funds. And it's like, you better, because there's no good mechanism to really return it to the community. Now there is, relatively speaking, in terms of Dash Boost, to where you can just be like, all right, well, I budgeted for $70 Dash. It's over 100 now. And now, and so now I got like a 30% extra funding buffer than what I thought I'd need. I'm going to use it to provide extra value with that same money that was voted for. That's okay.
As long as it's the same line of, you can't.
Yeah, and especially totally different. Or it's either that, or right now you can just literally give it to Dash Boost and it can be repurposed. But don't do that, and then all of a sudden you don't have money to keep the lights on next month. If you're doing a one-off, like I'm doing a conference, oh, I have double the money I thought I would. Well, I get a bigger sponsorship, have a bigger presence, fly a couple extra people out, do more with the same Dash. But if it's like, oh, I got like a recurring thing, oh, I got more money now, I'm gonna go spend it on some like expensive like business analytics or survey or something, and now I can't keep the lights on next month. It's like, ooh, well, maybe you hold on to that long term. These markets are crazy. I don't know. A lot of people are talking about stable coins and stuff, but whatever. I don't do that.
So, general health of the DAO, in your opinion? Sorry, I'll throw it over to Brian. So, Brian, you think the health of the DAO right now, is it healthy to you? Like, is it problematic, or do you just think, you know, it's just is it growing pains, or are you happy with everything as it is right now?
Well, there's some larger whale movements that that gives me a little bit of pause, but for the most part, it's good. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, honestly, from my observations, I like it. It sucks when you have to acknowledge bad things happening and still have a positive outlook, a positive factual outlook. I like the way it's been going on the trend line. It's been going pretty well. I remember there was one proposal back in the day that I remember that proposal being highly controversial, and it didn't look like it was going to pass. And then it got a 400 vote whale. And then it got like soon after, like a 300 vote whale. It was just like in chunks, in big chunks. And I've been looking at the voting patterns. I've not seen anything like that in many years. Yeah. But I just still saw that. I'm just like, yeah, that's really hard
that
to
must have been a long time ago. I haven't seen whales like that.
2016.
Yeah,
it wasn't either.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago, but not that long. 2016 is still relatively recently. But anyway.
There's still some big whales, but yeah, I haven't seen anything that size in years.
Well, okay, so now on to more positive stuff. So over the weekend, Edward on his Twitter account, I think it's Dash_Red_games. If you're on Twitter, go follow him. He put out a tweet. So for those that don't know, Edward is based in Colombia, and he tweeted out a picture of him at a coffee shop. And for those of you that follow the podcast and our videos are familiar with the catchphrase where I say, hit that like button, smash for Dash. And Edward just happened to be at a coffee shop called Smash with a logo, paid for his coffee and had the Dash thing, and it's just like, yeah. So now, you know, some people
Smash for Dash.
So now, literally, you know, we can say Smash for Dash legitimately, and obviously, I need to go to Colombia. So now I kind of want to shift the conversation over to Colombia because Edward, there's a lot going on in Colombia, and I don't think a lot of the community, you know, they follow George, but as you're on the ground, what are you seeing? Is it merchants, or is there really a movement there in Dash at the moment?
It's incredible because there is a movement here. It's hard to believe that it would happen here, but it is happening every day. There are 2 Dash merchants in Sabaneta, Antioquia, which is where I live. Sabaneta is in the southern part of Medellin. It's you know, like a suburb part. It's part of the greater city, but it's, you know, part of there. And there's 2 Dash merchants right here, just within 300 meters of where I live. So I can just go down and have a pizza tonight and pay with Dash. There's a place that sells nice sandwiches that's a little bit farther down that also accepts Dash. 2 of them here, and in Envigado, which is where George happens to live, which is not 15 minutes away by bus. There's got to be at least 50 restaurants. I'm guessing. I'm just saying there's a lot. I don't know what the number is.
Are you spending Dash at these merchants though? Are you actually going out and spending it and living the life?
That's why I tweeted last night, Friday night, that we went, because every Friday night the Dash group gets together and we have this. It's just a coincidence because we happen to live here. There's a number of people who are into Dash here. And so we like to get together on Friday nights and just talk about whatever. And we like to go to a Dash merchant and spend Dash. So that's why last Friday I was at a coffee place that accepts Dash, and it's called Smash Avocado. So,
it's great
for Dash.
Smash for Dash.
I still like that convenient thing. There's many harder to publicly quote uses for that little saying, but I'll take the avocado places for now.
Yeah.
Now I think it's interesting, like you said, I had no idea this place of all places would have such a Dash presence, and that it's interesting because someone, I was being interviewed today about someone's writing a book on blockchain stuff and wanted to know about Dash and stuff. So I was on the phone with them, giving a little interview, and they're saying, "No, Venezuela. Why has Venezuela been doing that well, or what leads to like successful Dash adoption someplace? Is it like the unique circumstances?" And I said, "Well, that's like in my opinion, that's secondary. The first thing, the common thread between Colombia, between here in New Hampshire, between Venezuela, every place that I know, has been a dedicated team on the ground talking to merchants, actually addressing their needs as a business, and building up a customer base. Just the groundwork could happen anywhere. I mean, I'm sure there's some places where it's like, oh, we have no internet at all. Well, that kind of sucks. But anywhere else, that's the number one thing that makes a thriving Dash merchant community is just people on the ground setting up merchants and patronizing them. And you could have like, oh, well, this place, the legal structure is better for that. Or, oh, over there, they got a currency collapse. So they need something different. Yeah, but number one, boots on the ground.
Absolutely. And fortunately for Dash, we have a treasury which enables us to have projects that can put boots on the ground. And we have people who are dedicated to Dash and love the cryptocurrency and love how it works and love the fact that we have a mobile wallet that works so well. We probably have the best mobile wallet in the entire industry, both on iOS and Android, where you can go in and they tell you the price in pesos because they don't know what it is in Duffs or in, you know, like 0.0000213. They're not going to remember that. They just tell you it's in, you know, Colombian pesos. You just scan and pay, and you don't have to think about it. It's easy to do. It's really, really an amazing technology, and it works extremely, extremely well. We are very proud to have right here Samuel Barbosa, who is a core team member and who does programming for the Android application. He's based here in Medellin, and we're just really proud to have him and proud to have George. And George includes an entire team. I mean, his team has grown. I think he has 4 full-time members on his team and a number of people who work on commission. It's just working fantastically.
I'm glad you mentioned wallets, because this is something I wanted to bring up, because I noticed a few videos you've done recently are tutorials on the Electrum wallet, and
Yes.
not a lot of people use the Electrum wallet. Now, I've been a fan of the Electrum wallet. These two know this, but do you just want to give a bit of background about the Electrum wallet? Are you a fan, and why are you making videos on it?
Right. Well, it's really important that the people who participate in the Dash.Red promotions understand what a wallet is, because most of them don't, and they use websites for wallets, including websites that I would never consider worthy of holding someone's money. A website is not a bank, it's just a website. And it's a central thing that can go down for all kinds of reasons, including theft, or including just the fact that the owner just decides to take all the money and run. All of those things can happen and have happened. So we want our users, if we're going to be paying them real money, which we are, we want them to be, you know, good custodians of their money and understand what they're doing with it.
Of course,
So
and it's realer than real money, in fact.
Exactly. So they need a wallet that's easy to understand and that can do everything that they can possibly need. And the one that is the closest to that, you know, to fulfilling those needs without downloading the entire blockchain is the Electrum wallet. There's one other thing that's interesting, and that is that Dash.Red is optimized for gameplay inside of a laptop or a computer, not inside of a handheld device. So that just means that much more that our users should be using a wallet that is going to open either on Windows or Linux or Macintosh, a desktop-based computer.
Right, we had someone in the live chat earlier on. I feel like this is the perfect time to address it. And they're saying, what is Dash.Red? So do you just want to break that down, and then we can start getting into it?
Imagine if Farmville and Candy Crush paid you money and got you educated about Dash.
I didn't actually realize.
I'll let you go away.
I didn't actually realize this until Porkfest, where you actually explained why it's called Dash.Red. I didn't understand the symbolism of the .red bit, so that might be a good point to start on.
Okay,
yeah, because Dash is blue and red's the opposite.
Yeah, let's start with the name. Why is it called Dash.Red? Because we were lucky enough to get the domain. So that's just the truth. We got the domain, and I thought it was the coolest domain ever because it's Dash.Red. It's so easy to remember. And so in Spanish, red is net. It literally means the kind of net you would throw into the ocean to catch fish, or it would also mean the net of the network, like a net of the internet. So it's in Spanish, it doesn't sound like a color. It just sounds like a net. So since our target market is Spanish speakers, it's a perfect domain for us. And then, so, I mean, that's how we got the name. We started with that. And then while I was still working for a very large software company back in the day, I was developing Dash.Red on the weekends. And so I contacted a company that sells games, and I asked them if they could help me to, make them work on a website that would give away, duffs, or, the little fractions of Dash. And they said, sure. And they sold me the licenses to their games and helped me to program them so that they could do this job. And then, of course, I had to make it work with a Dash wallet, which was a challenge within itself. That they didn't help me with. I had to do all of that work myself. So it was about a year, a little more than a year and a few months of work from the time we got the domain until the time the website launched. And then after that, there were all kinds of other problems we had to overcome, especially related to fraud, where people would create multiple accounts, where people would ask machines to play the games for them instead of playing the games themselves, and other various problems. So we've overcome a tremendous number of problems. Now the website is running extremely smoothly, and that's allowed us to develop other things where we now create a lot of video content for YouTube, where we actually put games on YouTube, where people can play a game on YouTube. And we've developed something which for me is so exciting. And that is that this month, for the first time, we have a game that people can only play if they can sign a message. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means that you prove that you have access to your private key by signing a message that we give you. So we give you the message, you sign it with your private key, and then we know that you actually have access to your private key. Very important, because we're pushing real wallets to people, and we want people to win when they have a real wallet. So this is a way for them to prove that they're using a real software wallet. It's very exciting for me.
What was the idea behind it, though? I mean, are you a big gamer? Do you just love games? Or was there a reason that you just thought, right, I want to do this?
Angry Birds addiction.
Was there an XYZ reason why you wanted to build it?
Well, I mean, I've been working on databases professionally for the past, goodness gracious, it must be 20 years. I couldn't even count it anymore. But for many, many years, I've been working on databases. And so to create a database-driven website with a tremendous amount of traffic and a tremendous amount of activity, for me, is just my cup of tea. I love to do that. And so that's pretty much what has always driven me, is the ability and the fun of creating something that so many people can get involved in, and so many things can happen all at the same time. The funny thing is, our database on Dash.Red is extremely active, because every time someone plays a game, and some of the games only take 2 seconds to play, we have slot machine games, for example, and they cause a transaction on that database every time someone clicks the button to play. And so you're talking about thousands and thousands of transactions per minute. It's an extremely active database. And yeah, it's just the kind of thing that makes me go, yeah, this is cool. I just love it.
What's the breakdown of where the traffic's coming from? What's the top, places?
Right. The top country, without any question, is Venezuela. Probably 90% of all of the traffic that we get comes from Venezuela. Oh, wow. After that would be Brazil. Brazil is also pretty decent traffic. Comes from Brazil. After that is Colombia. And from there on, we have a lot of people who are in North Africa. I don't know why North Africa seems to like Dash so much, but we have lots of people from Algeria, Tunisia. We have the United States and many other countries in Latin America as well. We must have at least 2 or 3 members in Dash.Red from every other Latin American country, without a doubt.
Do you have any stats, stat facts that you can drop, like amount of users? Sure. Or I want to get to transactions in a bit, but
okay. We have 11,757 accounts verified by YouTube. So that means that somebody's created a YouTube video, put it up there, and left it there for long enough for me to see the video and verify the account. And that has to be done. It's a manual process. I can do about 100 in a day. And right now we're getting about 10 submissions a day, which in a down market isn't bad. That's not bad at all. No. Yeah. So we've completed, well, here we go, transactions. I have statistics on transactions.
Go for it.
We've completed 653,000 transactions on the Dash network, which is an awful lot. And that doesn't include the transactions that set up to make the wallets work, because it actually requires 2 wallets to make all of the transactions work that we have. So there's a lot of setup work, and that's only the transactions that go out to the game players. And since September, which at the end of September, we had our last proposal, we've had 131,000 transactions, which is not bad considering it's a down market. We've seen a loss in interest from our users, globally speaking, because let's face it, you know, the price goes down, and so people need to find something else to do. I mean, you know, we were paying 50,000 duffs back in September per day, and now we're paying 65,000 duffs, which in dollars happens to be less, even though it's more in duffs. So it costs us more money to keep people interested. But we still did 131,000 transactions in a 4-month period, which is wonderful. We've paid out 70 Dash since September, and we've paid out almost, this is unbelievable, almost 300 Dash since the beginning of Dash.Red. We've paid out 297 Dash to date. In fact, by the time we finish this month, when is the end of the month? It's coming up. But anyway, yeah. Okay, yeah, voting is like Sunday, so I don't know. It must be coming up. But anyway, I think maybe by the end of the month we'll hit 300. But it'll be really close, that's for sure.
So what's the monthly transactions, like 3,000 or?
We do, it just really varies with the wind right now. It seems we're doing between 800 and 1,200 transactions every day. So let's call it an average of 1,000 a day, which would be 30,000 a month. What's interesting is if we go back to June, which was our high point, we were doing 3,000 transactions every day at that point. But there was a lot more interest in cryptocurrency at the time. So,
of course. I mean, those things come and go. But I mean, right now, you're probably doing like a third or a half of Bitcoin SV's entire transaction volume. So
well,
that's not bad.
Possible.
No, I do check the stats daily, and yeah, that's.
I don't know anything about Bitcoin SV.
How about like a third to a quarter of Monero's transaction volume?
Oh, that's great.
That's a little bit. That's a little bit more in your brain, but I'm just saying, like that's in a lot of cryptocurrencies, especially higher valued ones. That is a very significant number of transactions, and I think that I do remember there was a period of time where you had to take a break from the whole proposal thing, and I think a lot of that had to do with people just not understanding the work you put in to keeping the network flowing well, keeping the money distributed very well in the Dash's coin supply, and onboarding new users.
Yeah. There's a tremendous amount of work in what we do. We never stop working. This is a 6-day-a-week operation without any doubt.
Slacker.
Each day, yes, Slacker.
No, Mark's laughing because he's a 7-day-a-week guy, and I usually am as well. But 6 is still very nice, very respectable.
Yeah, it's but we're talking 10-hour days, 6 days a week. And why? Why? The funny thing is, why? Because I love it. That's why.
The best reason.
I just looked at the Monero. Yeah, they're 2,700 a day. And earlier I said a month, but yeah, really? I'm in a day. So yeah, 27.
Wow. It must have gone down.
Yeah, that's pretty low. Yeah. So yeah, Dash.Red's outperforming Monero.
This is why I think it's really important.
Yeah, 2.927 thousand today. Ooh, Jiminy Cricket there. Come on, Edward, you're doing pretty well.
Dash.Red does actually have a big impact on the network effect on our transactions, as we've just been saying, and I don't think you get the appreciation that you deserve, actually. And I want to come back to the verification process, because you're saying it's manual, but I want to go into why it's manual, because I hope Brian will forgive me for saying this has got nothing to do with Dash.Red, but typically Brian's Mr. Skeptical on most things, because he's kind of like, we've got to stop people from being able to game systems. This is on all kinds of proposals. But your approach, I think, is probably one of the most strenuous ways of validating it, but it's for a very, very good reason. You know, if you have a lot of automated systems, then people can gamify it, and you put a lot of work into the verification process. So can you just break down why there has to be how that verification system works and why you've chosen to do that model.
Right. It's an interesting thing because we didn't know what to do a year ago. So 1 year ago, what we were experiencing was people would create an account, they would play the games, and an hour or two later, they would have enough won in their account to withdraw. And then they would think to themselves, well, my goodness, I got time. Why not just do it again? So they create another account, and we could see from the IP address that they were doing this. We could also, we were using other security measures to determine when the same computer is used in different accounts. So we have everything built into the system to understand when someone is playing games. Not only that, but they were doing it to the extent that the website would go down, even though we had 16 CPU server for the front end, a 16 CPU server for the database, and the wallet on a separate server. We had all of this separated, so we had very powerful machines. Even with that, there were moments when there was so much traffic, the website would just, crash. And so we needed to do something. And so the solution was, the first solution was I had to block Venezuela. I just had to block the entire country. So I blocked them for a 10-day period.
Internet blackout, censorship.
Yeah, they were not happy, but I put all of the IP addresses for Venezuela into the firewall and just blocked it while I thought of what to do. And so it came to me that if I asked each person to create a 30-second video and put it on YouTube and then give me the link to the video and create an automated process to do this. So it's not just, it has to be automatic. And so we launched this, I think, in April of 2018, if I remember correctly. Yeah, April. And it's been wonderful because we completely opened up all IP addresses. Now we don't even care if people use a VPN, which we used to. We don't care anymore. The amount of fraud has dropped to, okay, we know. The funny thing is we have ways of telling when people, commit fraud on the website. But the best way to prevent fraud is also not to have the prizes be too big. So if they're too big, then people just start gaming the system because they want to get as much as they can. So there's kind of a balance, and it's taken a long time for us to create a really nice balance. And so having that process in place where we verify accounts with a video is absolutely wonderful. And there's another thing about that most people don't know. The website checks YouTube to make sure that the video is still there. It does it about once a week. So we always know that the videos are still there. So a person, just by activating his account and going in and playing games once a week, our website checks with YouTube and says, is the verification video still there? Because if they delete the video, if they think, I don't need this anymore, just delete it, they can't withdraw. The website detects it, they can't withdraw, and that's worked brilliantly. And it's also extremely important that they keep that video as part of their account, because when I look at the page for just checking up on anybody's account, I have the video right there. I know who I'm talking with. I know who I'm dealing with.
That's excellent.
Yeah, it's worked out extremely, extremely well.
So you single-handedly helping solve the Dash liquidity issue in Venezuela? Because it sounds like you're probably one of the most major players then, actually helping put Dash actually in people's pockets in Venezuela, right?
Yes.
Number-wise, right? It's got to be the case.
Yes, I mean, at least in terms of, the sheer number of transactions is incredibly high. And we know there are people from Venezuela without any question because of the verification videos where they state, I live in Venezuela. And then, of course, we can check with the IP addresses where they are. And we know, I mean, Venezuela is where we have the biggest interest from people in the world.
So do you personally feel that Dash.Red plays an important role in introducing people into the Dash ecosystem?
Yeah, I do. I think it's incredibly important. And I also think it's incredibly important to have our coins distributed as far and wide as possible into as many hands from people all over the world. Nothing makes me happier than to see a legitimate account coming in from someplace unusual. And we get many. I mean, we have a number recently from Uzbekistan. What the heck? I mean, where do they know about Dash.Red? I don't know. But
all they need to, apparently.
We don't block anyone. You know, anybody is welcome, whether you're from the United States or from Great Britain. Who knows?
So what if you saw, so our good friend of the podcast and crypto shows, Chuck Williams, says hi.
Hello.
Says hi, Edward. And what if you saw someone pop in a verification video with a Guy Fawkes mask, but Chuck's indistinguishable, buttery toned voice? I'd like to play Dash.Red and earn some Dash. Like, would you let him get some of your free Dash, knowing that?
No, no, you have to.
Sorry, Chuck.
There's certain rules. You have to show your face without any question, because we do take an image of the face and we use software to verify that it's not a duplicate of another face. And that's actually worked out extremely well, because we found some people who've created multiple accounts. It doesn't happen like it used to. It really doesn't. It used to be ridiculous how many of those we would get.
Can we talk about the games?
Sure.
Because I feel like we've not explained that well enough. Because they're not just games and you get a transaction. You can actually help the Dash ecosystem by asking them to perform tasks as well. For example, if you complete this game, you can go visit dashnews.org to get the transaction, correct?
Well, we have educational-based games. I mean, we have created a number of games. They're not permanent games. They're there for a week. So, for example, we created a number of games where people needed to determine out of 5 or 6 Dash addresses which one was a valid address. So, for example, that would be a game. And the idea of the game is to teach people, if you change one letter of a Dash address, it's no longer valid. You can't make a mistake with a Dash address. It's almost impossible. So we want people to know that. That's important information. But how do we tell them, how to do that? We create a game, and we say, go to this web page, and on the web page, you'll see 5 Dash addresses, or 7, whatever the number was. So which one is a valid Dash address? If you can determine, you will win for sure. You win whatever it was. So I don't remember.
You know what would be a fun game? Would be the same thing, except you have 3 addresses. I just say one's a valid Bitcoin address, the other's a valid Bitcoin Cash address, and the third is a valid Bitcoin SV address. Guess which one is which?
Yeah. Are they all the same? I have no idea.
They're all the same.
How much?
I mean, with some difference, with some caveats that there are some different transaction formats. But yes, there is a possibility that the 3 addresses could be the same.
So how much work actually goes into designing these new games? Do you really think about it? Because yesterday you showed me you had books of plans and maps and stuff. Because you don't just go, oh, that's a good game, I can use that. You actually think from the ground up how this game's going to work and the task that they need to serve. And so, do you want to talk a bit about that? I don't know if you want to show the book, because that might give some stuff away. But I think if people saw the amount of work that you put in, I think they'd be surprised.
I don't think my camera is good enough to pick up all the details, but this is one of the books that I put all of my notes in. This is how we create the games and how we plan for our weeks and weeks ahead. We know the games.
I just saw your Trezor password. You might want to change that.
I don't have Trezor. But, the funny thing about that book is that's how, I create stuff. It takes a tremendous amount of time. The games that we present on YouTube are planned out many days in advance. So it's funny because we know the results of the game. That should be plainly obvious to anybody who's watched the games that we present on YouTube. We know the results of the game. It's not like we present them live. We know what is going to happen in the end. But that's not the point. The point is we keep it interesting, and the people who play the games, they don't know the results until we present the results. And they're played like contests, and they're played with the idea of learning something new. They're played with the idea of if you show your knowledge or if you download a real software wallet, you benefit. You get something that other people aren't going to get. We have our biggest prize game live right now. It offers up to 5 million duffs on a very easy game to win. You only have to guess 3 cards out of 12. And there's 4 combinations of those 3 cards available. So the odds of winning are about 1 in 50. And yeah, really easy to win 5 million duffs. That's the biggest prize we've ever offered any game. But the only thing is, the caveat is you must sign a message to get in. So you need a real software wallet. If you're using a website as a wallet, you can't play the game.
Yeah, you know what I'm looking forward to when you roll out the game. It's like a whack-a-mole knockoff, but it has the magical crypto friends and has Ryan and Evan popping in there too. So you got to be careful not to smack the wrong person.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, is there any plans to market more or get more engagement from Africa? That seems like a huge place to, get some more transactions.
Yeah, the funny thing is our games are presented primarily in Spanish. Once in a while we do a presentation in English, but most of our games are presented in Spanish. And it really has nothing to do with us being against Africa. In fact, I would love to see more people from Africa, participating in our games. And we're beginning to put subtitles on all of our videos. We do them in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. And that takes a tremendous amount of extra work, but we're trying to get an audience from anywhere we can. But I think our videos are going to primarily be in Spanish from now on to, until it's all over, whenever Dash.Red is over. Yeah.
Yeah. We kind of have an unwritten rule on the podcast that we won't have guests on or talk about proposals that are currently up for being funded, but it kind of be rude not to mention that you do have a proposal in this cycle, and it's currently in the green anyway, right? It's already in the passing zone.
To clarify the rule we have, we do not promote proposals on the news site at all. Just now, we only report on what is. We used to report on stuff as soon as they got funded, but then like 90% of them, nothing happened out of them. So we're like, So we just only when they produce results. The podcast we have on anyone at all who wants to, who's a friend, but in particular, I mean, we as a rule don't have people on to talk about their proposals, but you're here talking about your past work, right? In your past and present work, which, if I just said, hey, everyone go vote down his proposal, destroy it, just make sure, salt the earth when you're done. Don't do that.
No.
But if we did that, everything you'd be talking about today would still be relevant. So that's kind of the litmus test.
Yeah.
Edward, how do you feel about the Dash community? Because I think the community gets Dash.Red, but this is just my personal gut feeling. I think a lot of the masternode owners that actually voted on your proposal don't understand how it works, like the mechanics and all the work that goes into it. Would you agree with that assessment, or do you have a different viewpoint?
I would agree that most masternode owners don't have, perhaps they don't have the time or whatever, I'm not really sure. But they haven't really learned all of the details about Dash.Red. But yeah, or perhaps they don't understand the amount of time that I put into the work, and not just myself. Also, Paula is doing a tremendous job in creating videos. She's working very hard as well. So it's a family effort. Paula is my wife, and we even have the cat making videos now. Anything we can do to do something creative and to make people interested in Dash. That's our goal, and it is a tremendous amount of work.
Yeah,
I think Masternode don't see the transaction numbers though, and we know it's gamified, and that's for me at least. And I see the transaction number, I'm like, yes, I'm voting for this.
Yes. Now, I would encourage every single voter, which includes Masternode operators as well as people who they've entrusted their split voting key to as soon as that's a live thing, which will be interesting. Whoever has voting powers, check out some of these proposals in terms of like go to Dash.Red and sign up for a game or something in this specific case and play. Just see what you're getting into. Go to dashnews.org, read some of this stuff. Look at some of the videos that we've done. Go to discoverdash.com, sniff around, see if there's merchants in your way. Obviously use the core wallets or whatever. Use all that stuff. Use whatever you're paying for. Give it a test. Become a, what do they call it? The undercover boss or whatever that show is in the US. Just like go in there and get involved in like what you're paying to have happen.
Yeah, I would really like to see like an English version. I know Edward says he wants to keep it in Spanish, but I would really love to see English. I think there's so much potential in places like Africa and stuff. Maybe that could be a spinoff or ask for more money.
You just need an attractive Colombian lady to translate for you. I'm sure there might be plenty close to where you're at. Just say what.
Well, it's not completely out of the question. Maybe we can create some games. Now, remember, the games on the website are in English. Okay. The entire website is in 3 languages. It's completely translated. So everything that's written is already in English. The games that we present that are, like live, they're not really live. Of course, they're pre-recorded, but they're video content. Most of that is in Spanish. I have thought very strongly about creating videos in English, but unfortunately, the only person I know, or the only person who's in the Dash.Red organization who speaks English is me, and I'm not the greatest presenter. I mean, it'd be nicer to have a really attractive young woman, or even a nice-looking young man, someone young who's energetic. There you go, Joel.
Well, as much as cool as that would be, obviously there's limited time and resources, and that goes to Spanish-speaking countries. I personally, speaking from my own opinion, not having thought this through too much, by the way, either, just off the cuff of my head, that's not even an expression, but whatever. I think it's a good idea because we have the two of the heaviest merchant adoption hotspots in the whole world for Dash are Colombia and Venezuela. And it makes sense and also as far as like I don't know how many people in the US or Europe would be as attracted to, would be able to buy anything meaningful with those prizes. Like, what can someone buy with a Dash.Red prize in Colombia? Like, what the price point? Can they play the game, get some Dash, and can they immediately spend it on something? Or is that not enough?
Well, if you're talking about the daily amount is 65,000 duffs. So if you just play the games only on the website and you do nothing else, you can receive 65,000 duffs per day, which is not a lot of money.
What's the USD value of that right now?
I'm going to guess a nickel, 5 cents, maybe
so
4.5 cents, something like that.
So if you play for a week and you get like...
So if you play for 10 days, you got 50 cents.
And what does that buy in Colombia?
You could buy a cup of coffee.
There you go. You cannot buy the cheapest cup of coffee I've found around here at any decent place is like $1.95. So it's like you could get to like lower, but like if you could get a 50-cent cup of coffee in Colombia, then it's like, especially if you just say, congratulations, you've won this much. Here's a coffee shop near you. Tie it to the Discover Dash listing. People are like, oh, snap, I can go buy coffee with my little, and then they get it, and then they're a user. That's the cool thing. And that's why I don't necessarily see it as a huge priority to get English involved, because the parts of the world there, unless you start targeting African regions that, for example, Ghana and Nigeria that do speak English, and you're able to find local merchants that can do something like that. That might be something good. But again, already. Like, focus on what we got. We got that good economic corridor right there. Colombia, Venezuela, right in there. Sometimes expanding to Brazil and other countries. Get all that, rain all that free Dash there where people can actually buy something with it, or like a few kids play together and then they all pool their Dash and buy a little thing together. However it works, I think you're doing a great job so far. I don't think you really need to pivot to do to earn your keep.
Well, thank you, Joel, for recognizing our work. Thank you very much.
Well, the proof is in the stats, isn't it? And you're getting
proof is in the proof is in the steak.
But that reminds me of an article, but I don't want to get too sidetracked. So, like, I want to talk about Colombia again, because in the news on my side of the pond, and I know I mentioned this to you last night, but as we're on the podcast, I think it'd be important to address, because there's a lot of political turmoil going in Venezuela this week. And in my side of the pond, we're getting all kinds of reports, and I'm sure in the States it's the same. We had reports saying that apparently there's like every single day there's 50,000 Venezuelans coming into Colombia. That must be having some kind of impact. And so what are you actually seeing on the ground without being too political? And do you actually see this in any way as being advantageous to Dash?
Well, yes, there are some things that are definitely advantageous to Dash. The ability for a person, any person, to earn a living in Colombia is much greater than in Venezuela, just because of all kinds of economic problems in Venezuela. And so many Venezuelans have come to Colombia to live because Colombia is a welcoming country to Venezuelans. And that has to do, in great part, to the history of the two countries. They have some rivalry between the two, but overall, they see each other very well. And so there are a lot of Venezuelans who have come to Colombia permanently, whether legally or not, I don't know, but they definitely live here. If you go to a restaurant in Medellin, most likely the people who will serve you or the people who are cooking in the kitchen are from Venezuela. It's just extremely common that they work in kitchens and in restaurants and in hotels. So that's the kind of work that they tend to do just as a group. And there are Venezuelans who are coming across the border very recently, very, very recently, and in large numbers. Some of them are coming just for a short period of time, maybe to do some shopping, because the markets are so much better stocked here than they are in Venezuela. So people come here, they buy things in places like Cucuta, and they go back across the border, and it may be just a one-day trip. And naturally, because we share such a large border, there are many people who have family that are just on the other side of the border, family and friends. And so that ability to cross back and forth has been something that has been a natural part of people's lives since the beginning of their lives. I mean, it's been that way for over 100 years, I believe. So.
Cannot Dash play an important role in remittances then? Because if Venezuelans are coming to the border to work, then they must have friends and family. So like Dash could play a really pivotal role, because we hear all these horror stories about confiscation of precious metals on the border. And clearly they're already open to alternative currencies. They've got no option, really, no alternative. So they've got to be. So maybe, and I'm sure George is a smart cookie, so I'm sure he's probably already thought about this already. But yeah, this sounds like a prime market, because there's a real use case here specifically for remittances just in Colombia alone to send back to Venezuela. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, George is working on some very exciting things. I know inside news that I can't tell because it's his to tell. It's his story to tell. And he's let me in on a few secrets that are really, really exciting, and they have a lot to do with Venezuela, and they have a lot to do with remittances in particular. But you're absolutely right. I mean, we are in a prime position where the money that is earned here could be turned into Dash and sent to Venezuela. And there's a couple of key things that need to happen. One of them, and George is working on this, is he wants to see more merchants in Venezuela, but he wants to see the kind of merchants that normal people would be using. So he's mostly interested in seeing things like supermarkets and pharmacies. Those are critical things that people need on a day, every single day basis. And we want to see more of those businesses accepting Dash. And another thing that he wants to see here in Colombia is more points of sale for Dash, more places where people who want to buy Dash can go in and buy it. So he has a current proposal, and I know we're not supposed to talk about proposals, but it's also in the green, and so we're happy about that. But his proposal is one that will create the technology to allow a merchant that accepts Dash to be able to sell Dash as well. So we could potentially have many points of sale right here in Colombia in about a year's time, which would be phenomenal.
Yeah, if there's such a big concentration of Venezuelans, of course, we know the core business dev and their strategy is specifically on Latin America. And if, it makes to, if that's your target audience, then if there's a concentrated population of Venezuelans actually working and earning money, then there's a clear use case for remittances there. And I think Colombia should be a really strong focus in that. Otherwise, I really feel we're missing a trick. Brian, I mean, I don't know. Okay. Question for Brian, right? Because sometimes I feel like I leave out Brian, but he's got a lot of wisdom. He's been around for a long time. He's seen a lot. He's seen a lot of
being wise, same as he's always been. You just forget about him, poor guy.
There's a lot. There are some people in the community, that feel that too much focus goes on Venezuela, not so much Colombia, because Colombia's up and coming. Actually, it's becoming more of the rising star, actually, but. They feel like, we should be looking elsewhere and focusing efforts. It's almost like they get jealous of the attention of Latin America. Do you, as a voter, as a masternode, are you happy with people like Edward's efforts and the Venezuelan proposals and George's work in Colombia? Do you think too much energy is going on that area, or do you think that's where our focus really should be?
Yeah, you got to strike where the iron's hot, as the saying goes. I have noticed that Africa has been kind of put on the back burner. They used to be, more focus on them. But I would like to see a little bit more focus on Africa. But I think for the most part, we're doing what we should be.
Yeah, it's one of those things that there's it's difficult because when you first off, there is no such thing as a perfect use case. There's some really good ones, but nothing, hard work. You got to go there. You got to find out what consumers and merchants actually want. You got to find a way to set them up, get an economy going. You got to put the work in on the ground. There's no substitute for that. Beyond that, you have to make sure that you have the infrastructure available. And I would love to see Africa be number one. In the whole world. The challenge is a lot of these places, there's not enough internet infrastructure and things like that around, or not enough liquidity and exchanges that's easy to get. It's a lot more work to get the same thing out of that. And then you get places, I wouldn't say like the US is actually like a mid case for crypto adoption, to where a lot of people don't need it, but at least in New Hampshire, people are very open to taking alternative forms of payment and stuff. They're very okay with that. Whereas you might have other countries, like from what Mark tells me with the UK, it's a little bit, businesses are a lot more risk averse with deviating outside of that basic prospect. So yeah, Dash should be for the whole world, and we should definitely diversify our efforts so we don't just have hey, they shut down the internet in one or two of these countries, all of a sudden now we're just useless. But all at the same time, feed what works. You don't get the free market works not because you decide which area is going to be. No, they tell you. The market, the grounds up, tells you.
Yeah,
and it tells you where people have demand. Feed that demand.
Yeah, Africa has the greatest potential in the future for growth. I mean, that's what's going to happen. We just definitely need to keep a foothold in there, and make sure they get the attention they need. But yes, there has been a lot overwhelming in Venezuela, Colombia, which is good. But yeah, just keep Africa in mind as well.
Absolutely.
Well,
Let's start to wrap it up.
Okay, so final question for Edward. This is a good one as well. So
I'll be the judge of that.
I think most people would agree with me. 2018, Venezuela was the real rising star for Dash in terms of merchant adoption. You know, we had some big franchises come on board. All the limelight seemed to be on them. Is 2019 going to be about Colombia? Because they've already, we're at the end of January and we're already seeing lots of new merchants coming on. Do you think Colombia for Dash could be 2019?
Good question.
That is a great question. I'm going to say I want to put it in two parts. Okay, first I want to talk about Colombia, and then I want to talk about Venezuela. I have no doubt that the things that are happening with George and his team are going to produce amazing results in Colombia in 2019. I have absolutely no doubt about it. It's already happening. I saw a video just yesterday of Luisa presenting to a group of consumers, which I think is the most exciting thing. Not only do we have merchants, now we have them doing these meetups where they bring in consumers, they make them install a wallet on their phone, they give them some Dash, they say, here's a merchant, please visit the merchant and spend the Dash. It's a whole class of how to use this money that they've never seen before, they've never used before. And wow, so now you've got merchants and consumers. That's something that I'm very, very proud to see happening right here in Colombia. It's an amazing thing. Now, does that mean that we're going to beat Venezuela in any way? Honestly, I don't even care. There's plenty of room for lots of winners. I hope Venezuela kicks ass in 2019. Excuse my French, but I want to see them be very successful. And I want to see not just more merchants, I want to see consumers. I want to see a lot of activity and a lot of buzz. So I think that lots of good things can happen out of Venezuela in 2019. Why not?
What a great answer. Round of applause for Edward.
Hey!
Hey! So before we wrap up and go into closing, so Edward, I kind of dropped your Twitter link earlier, but where else can people follow you? Would you just prefer them to go to Dash.Red, or is there any other social media accounts that you would like to plug?
Well, it depends on the kind of information you want. We do our MNO focused information is through Twitter. So the things that we want the MNO community to be paying attention to should be following us on Twitter. So that's Dash_Red_games. You'll find me on Twitter. We do some work on Facebook. Not a lot. We much prefer YouTube because the quality of our presentation is overall much better. So everybody should follow us on YouTube because that's where our best content is. And of course, you can find us at Dash.Red. Just put it into your browser and you'll see our website. There it will be.
Excellent. And oh no, Joel just dropped out.
We just lost Joel.
I was just about to pass it over to him. Unbelievable to do the closing. Okay, well perhaps I'll do it. So no, he's back. He's
coming back.
And perfect timing. And I'm gonna pass it over to my amigo Joel to take us out.
What are we all doing here? So if you have the privilege of operating a masternode, or you know someone that does, or someone's asking you for advice, now's the time to vote. I truly believe that the more, broadly speaking, the more voter engagement we have, the better. Go vote. Now, make sure to like, share, subscribe. This video, our fledgling little YouTube channel, is doing better now. We're putting out a lot of extra cool content on there. Check out the other videos there too. There's some really good merchant point of sale type videos. I've been interviewing some other people myself. That we're going to have news recap videos for the people who are too lazy to actually deal with text, which, you bastards. Share it all. tomorrow there's going to be a post out again in the text post. I know you hate text, but it's going to be there. That's going to have all the information for the audio only versions of this podcast. So you can just go do that as well. And as always, we have the after party, which is like this, but less professional, more casual, more real dirt or whatever else. All the goods you want, 10 at a time, up to the wee hours of the morning, up until the sun is going to set for the next day in Mark's time. And he realizes that his vision's starting to blur from lack of sleep. StayDashy.com gets you into the Dash Talk Discord. You get there, it's an awesome place too, by the way. But you can start asking around for the after party, and it'll be just like this. Be prepared to have your sunshiny, happy face on camera with a microphone, hanging out forever, and get in all the juicy gossip and awesome things like that.
Outstanding, Joel. That was fantastic.
Did I stay dashy enough for you?
That was very dashy. And I just got one last question for Edward. Edward,
Yes.
do you smash for Dash?
Of course.
So Edward
Smash
smashes
for
for Dash. So if you're watching this video, you should hit that like button, smash for Dash, and please like, share, and subscribe. As always, stay positive, stay humble, but most importantly, stay dashy. Have a great weekend. See you next Friday. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye, y'all.
Bye.